The cruel irony is that this often looks like a strength. This is perceived by people on the outside as being the person everybody comes to because you're so capable. You know how to read the room, you know what people need. And the cost of masking and the cost of being in this codependent system is invisible until your whole life started to fall apart because of it. Hey, I'm Dr. Regina, Ph.D., and this is Divergent Paths, the podcast where we talk about all the things late diagnosed and late identified neurodivergent people experience. I also have a weekly newsletter, Nerd Notes, where I offer nerdy insights and tools for working with your brain instead of against it. You can sign up at the link in the show notes. For this episode, Russ and I are talking about the intersection of neurodivergence and codependency.
It took us this long on a show that's sort of psychology. It's the first chapter in most of the psychology classes, right?
Right. This is, one of the first things you talk about. And here we are 60 some odd episodes in, and we're like, hey, let's talk about codependency.
Yes. So that means what else do we have after this, right? Come on. We'll talk egos later. I don't know.
We'll find other things, I'm sure, to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. What? What's the link? What's the intersection?
What's the intersection? That's really the big question, right? So I think let's start here. Obviously, you're entering this with an understanding of what codependency is. So you tell me what codependency is.
I don't have the doctor in my title. You have.
I know.
You
That's why I'm asking you.
You legally have to do it.
No, I don't.
Isn't it? I feel like the word itself, it just says it on its own. You're dependent on somebody else. Like your feelings, your emotions, everything is tied to somebody else, or someone else. Most things, or some things in some cases, depending on the. Yeah, that's where I would go with it.
So it's an external sense of self.
Yes.
Okay.
Or I'm going to say, so is it external sense of self? And does that external thing have to be somebody else? So is it codependent with somebody else specifically?
So
can I be codependent with my iPad?
I suppose you could be structuring your emotional life around your iPad.
Okay. Hours of screen time a day prove that. Yes.
Right. Yeah, it would take up a large percentage of your time. But in the original framework, it was more about families that experienced substance abuse and structured the entire family system around the person with the abuse problem or people with the abuse problem. So, like, for example, if you had a brother or a son or a daughter or, a person in your family who struggled with an addiction to alcohol or other substances, the whole family ends up structuring around that person. And that's sort of the broader context of it, was family members who organize their entire lives around managing someone else's dysfunction, usually associated with substance abuse.
And the way that I've seen it as well, and it feels like some people are also it's not always just that where it's focused on one person. It could be a person that is, let's say, moving that codependency amongst other people, looking for approval or attention or focused on somebody else always. And it just flips and to the whomever's next, right? So whoever needs that, whoever they perceive as needing that attention, they give them that attention. But really, it's making them feel better.
So what is the common thread in what you're saying here? Do you see it?
Do I see it? I'm going back to what you said. It's about the external.
Right. When you're often people who are in codependent situations or codependent relationships, instead of recognizing their feelings, they're managing the feelings and the emotions of the other people in the structure, whatever structure it is, family structures. Family structure is where it came from. But it doesn't have to just be family. You could be codependent with your friends as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody you
Mm-hmm.
have an intimate relationship with. But instead of going inside and being responsible for their emotional place, they put that outside themselves.
And I guess that also explains the jumping around, right? Like once one relationship or something ends, it's how do I manage this? Me. So
Right.
I've got to now push this on to somebody
You
else.
find another person or another relationship that you shift that to. And all of that is, in many ways, pulling out your own emotional experience and instead managing the emotional experiences of the other people. If you can't look back inside yourself and recognize where your feelings are coming from, right?
Right.
So, like the pop culture or the stereotype that ended up being and still is associated with being codependent is this idea that it's shorthand for being too needy or too emotional and putting that problem on the individual, right? Oh, they need too much, they're wanting too much, they're wanting too much attention. That's like what the pop culture stereotype became, right?
Right.
Like oh, she's just so codependent. And it
Mm-hmm.
became very dismissive, and it also became very gendered. So it became very much women were codependent because they wanted emotional connection with their partners, hetero partners, because this was the 90s, right? When this was like the big thing. And we weren't really talking about inclusive romantic relationships back then. So generally, this was women who were looking at men who weren't able to be emotionally available to them.
Okay. Now let's link this over to neurodivergent people.
Right.
Uh, are they more likely to develop these patterns?
And let me ask you another question.
Okay. You're putting me on the spot today.
I am putting you on the spot today. I really enjoy doing this. This is our new dynamic. He hates it, by the way, listeners. What does that sound like that we talk about a lot on the show?
What does that sound like?
Yeah, the
I
like,
don't know what you're talking about when you say sound. Like, which
what
part? What does what
does
sound like?
codependency, if codependency is managing someone else's emotional state or managing the emotional states of multiple people in a structure, like in a family, what do you think that can tie to that we've talked about?
It feels like that's like masking, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Do I get a ding,
Exactly.
ding, ding?
You get a
Yeah.
ding.
Okay,
You
good.
get a gold star.
Okay. Whew.
We'll give you a gold star for that one. Yes.
Right.
So
Thank
it
you.
sounds like masking, right?
Right.
Because people who are late diagnosed or late identified neurodivergent train themselves to be highly attuned to other people's moods and reactions because reading the room was a survival skill. So this is how you survived because you were hiding what you didn't know was you being different, right? So
Right.
you couldn't trust, you learned to not trust your internal signals because when you were very young, you were, I don't want to say trained, what do I say? You were conditioned to understand that your reactions weren't appropriate and weren't acceptable. So you outsourced that regulation to the people around you instead, right? So you stop checking in with yourself and you start monitoring everybody else.
Right.
And it looks like empathy and emotional intelligence because you're so aware of everybody else. It functions like an acute stress response because you're constantly in a threat detection mode. You're like, where is the danger in this situation for me?
And so is this getting to the masking question? Is this now masking with other people or is this masking to yourself? You're believing that this is the best thing to do, right? So your beliefs think that you're doing the right thing when in
Right.
reality it's like you're not really focused on what you need. You're masking those as needs for everybody else.
Exactly. These two things end up working together. So you may not have been in a codependent relationship, but the masking that you do to try to protect yourself and try to protect your neurodivergence ends up acting in the same structure as codependent relationships. This isn't rooted in family systems necessarily or addiction, because neither of those look at what's happening in your nervous system while you're doing this. Because if you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly looking for threats, your nervous system is constantly in a state of fight, flight, fawn, people pleasing, right? Where you just say yes, even though you want to say no. That becomes very much the people pleasing and becomes part of this. So, this structure of codependency is what you fall into in your relationships when you're high masking.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's not something with that like person. It's just like the
It's
system they built,
structure, it's the
right? It's
system, right? It's an
yeah,
external thing. And I think one of the things we struggle with being late diagnosed or late identified is that you've put so much time and so much effort into this. And as you start deconstructing your life, when you realize that you're late identified or late diagnosed, it feels like it's all you.
right,
It feels like you're the problem, but it's not. Nothing is ever one thing, right? Nothing is ever one thing. But if you had this structure that you ended up inadvertently falling into through the masking, through your attempts at protecting yourself, you just didn't
right.
have the tools to recognize your internal feelings or whatnot because you trained yourself to ignore them and you fell into this structure and this system. So the cruel irony is that this often looks like a strength. This is perceived by people on the outside as being the person everybody comes to because you're so capable. You know how to read the room, you know what people need. And the cost of masking and the cost of being in this codependent system is invisible until your whole life started to fall apart because of it.
A- And that's isn't that exactly what makes it so hard to recognize, right? And
Yes,
even really harder for people because it worked, right?
it
I mean,
worked. Yes.
it's been working, so it'll continue to work, right? Like,
Exactly. You think it functioned. It carried you so far through a life where you didn't understand why the struggles were as hard as they were. So why would you want to let go of that? Why would you want to change
yeah,
that? And
yeah,
that's where that tension comes from, that you need to let go of it because you need to get out of that structure in order to embrace a life that works with your brain and with who you are.
it's so easy to go to the easy. It's
It's
like,
so easy to go.
oh, it
It's so
worked.
easy to do the familiar. Like, why? Everybody
Yeah.
wants to do what you know how to do, right? Like, why wouldn't you want to do what you know how to do? This is what you know how to do. So you just do it.
Okay, so let's like, I mean, we're talking system, we're talking big
We're
picture, but
talking big, right? We're
let's
talking
go
like,
to the day to day. What does this
yeah.
look like day to day?
So feeling things will fall apart if you're not the person taking care of it.
We all know somebody that does that. We've worked for people, we've had people in our
Yes.
family, we've had there's so many people that just feel like they need to,
They need to
oh,
be the
I
one
don't
doing
do
things.
this.
The
No,
boss who can't delegate
exactly.
or who
That is
delegates
true.
and then corrects what is they're given. Right? All that
Yeah.
extra energy that they're putting into making it have to be theirs,
Yeah,
right?
delegation, micromanagement, all of that.
Mhm.
Like
All of that.
that
All of
all
that
falls
comes
into
from
there.
this same system. So it looks like saying yes is a default. Remember, I said
Mhm.
earlier saying yes when maybe you mean no, or maybe you mean maybe,
Yeah,
not out of generosity. This isn't you wanting to say yes, but this is conflict avoidance. You say yes because it's easier to say yes, right?
exactly. And I know I bring up improv probably too much on this show. But the person that I do improv with, we were chatting the other day. We were setting up some stuff for future classes and whatnot. And we were talking about how no is okay to say.
Yes.
As long as you're in this improv scene, we do the whole, oh, yes, and it's got to be, you can say no, and that can move the scene forward, right? No, I don't want to go to the party. You're not
Right.
denying that there's a party. You're
Then
just
you
now
have a conversation.
exactly. And now you can
Yes.
talk about why you don't want to go to the party and
Yes.
what's so no is okay, even in the yes and
Even in
world. So
improv, even in yes and circumstances.
in
That's
yes
great.
and land.
See,
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
very relevant improv connection. I love
Okay,
it.
good. Because usually it's just I did this fun scene the other day and I want to tell you about it. But
This also looks like difficulty knowing how to have those conversations because you're so used to paying attention to the outside context of what people need from you versus what you need, right?
yeah. Okay. So naming it matters is what you're saying.
Naming matters. None of this is a character flaw. These are adaptive strategies that we've come to, right?
Yep.
So it's really important that you start to recognize the exhaustion that comes from feeling like you're never off, right? Like you're always on. We talked about in an episode way back about procrastination, revenge, bedtime procrastination, right? That moment where
Yep.
you just stay up late because you feel like it's the first time in your day that you've gotten to be you. You get to be self. And you stay up late because it's quiet, because there's no demands from everybody else, and you're not having to manage the room. That's a strategy to find place for you in a life that has not made room for you.
Okay. So if this is landing for people,
If this is landing for people,
they might need to have a conversation with you.
a lot of late diagnosed adults build these patterns quietly and have carried them for a long time without ever having the language for what you're doing and why. So we're going to keep pulling a little bit on these codependent threads and start seeing some of the ways this interacts with rejection sensitivity, with masking, with your anxiety, and see these patterns. How do they affect your relationships and what it looks like to start building a self that belongs to you. So if you're at the point where you want to stop, or if you're at the point where you want to recognize the pattern and do something about it, book a Make It Make Sense call with me, and that's where we start. The link's in the show notes. Until next time, unmasking, removing yourself from a codependent context isn't selfish. It just means you're putting yourself in the game.